Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. And on today's video, we've got an exciting one because we've got balance change sneak peeks, we've got a couple of hypercharges going to be going through, and the 18 buffies, which is going to be a very long video, but I'm going to give you guys the best information in terms of what these balance changes will do to the meta, whether these buffies are going to be broken. Let's jump into it then. There's a lot to go through. Starting off with the buffs. Starting off with Jae-Young. Jae-Young is receiving a health buff. I'm getting stronger, guys, from 7,000 to 7,400. Just a little buff, but he has been needing some small little buff. The next brawler who's receiving a buff is Lou, and he's receiving 3 buffs. The first one to his health, it's going from 6,800 to 7,000, and then how long it takes to get fully frozen up is being buffed. So before it was 8.3 seconds, so when you're on the Lou ice rink, it will take you 8.3 seconds to fully freeze up. Now that has been reduced to 7 seconds, so people are going to get frozen much quicker, whole second quicker, and then also the freeze meter will start decaying after 2.5 seconds instead of 2 seconds. So that is when you're either getting shot by Lou or you're on his ice. Normally the decaying wouldn't start until 2 seconds. Now, well, like getting rid of that freeze meter, now it's going to take 2.5 seconds. So after all these buffs, you're just going to get frozen a lot more frequently. It's going to be a lot more annoying. Ziggy is also receiving 3 buffs. The first one to his health as well, going from 6,000 to 6,400. His recharge time is being improved by 5%, and his reaction time is being buffed by 5%. 5% faster to spawn the projectiles. So all in all, it's just going to allow you to shoot out shots a lot faster, which has been a big annoyance with Ziggy. Will this really improve him too much in the meta? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, because as a thrower, they've been suffering a lot in the meta, but it might make him a viable last pick again. Next up, we have Colette, and she's receiving 4 buffs. So all quite small buffs, but I think this should make her a little bit more manageable in the meta. So starting off with her main attack damage is being increased from 1,000 to 1,100. I think that's the minimum damage. Her main attack percentage damage has gone up from 37% to 39%. Her ultimate damage is being increased from 2,000 to 2,200, and the ultimate percentage damage is going from 20 to 22%. So with all of these buffs, I think it should allow Colette to just kill a lot more brawlers with her super, with her main attack, with whatever she decides in her kit. I think this should finally make her more of a tank counter again. It won't make her anything like crazy broken, but the meta has been crying out for a tank counter, and Colette probably will be that brawler now. Janet is receiving 2 buffs. The first one to her main attack projectile speed, so that's been increased by 4%. So not the actual time it takes to unwind her attack or just wind up and aim her attack, it's just how fast the projectile actually is. So it's just going to allow you to land shots a lot quicker. This feels really nice after testing this out. And then her drop the base gadget is being buffed from a 20-second cooldown to an 18-second cooldown. So it's not going to make anything like crazy for Janet, but it just means she's going to be able to hit shots a lot easier. I think this will at least make her meta again. She has been falling down quite a lot. Lola is receiving 2 buffs, although I don't think they're the craziest buffs in the world, but the first one is the hypercharge pet collision radius is being reduced, and her regular pet health is being increased from 4,000 to 4,400. So again, not like the craziest change, but it should make Lola feel a little bit better. Lumi is receiving a buff to her health. Her health is going from 5,800 to 6,200. So again, the Lumi buffs really made her like a C or B tier brawler at maximum, but she was definitely way too squishy. I think this is a nice change because Lumi is definitely too squishy. She really lacks the range, so at least giving her a bit more health will allow her to be a bit more meta. Gigi is receiving 5 buffs slash changes, and this should help the casuals learn how to play Gigi a lot more effectively, because before she was a bit too niche and a bit too hard to make work. So the first one is her main attack is now way more responsive. So that's as soon as you click your main attack button. Before there was like a little bit of delay, and sometimes it felt a little bit, I don't know, junky, clanky. It just didn't really feel right. Now it's way more responsive. You can feel the difference straight away, guys, so you're just able to spin a lot quicker. So her burst of speed while attacking is stronger as well. Her super burst at max level has been reduced from 3,000 to 2,600. This is mainly due to the fact that you could just combo so quickly, and that's not really healthy in my opinion. Like just being able to go in, go out, and just kill your brawler without them even being able to respond. That was always a toxic trait. I know Gigi's not exactly been strong, but it was a really strong mechanic. Her peak combo damage potential is now capped lower, and her attack has been, well, with a faster attack wind up has gone from 20% to 30% faster. So there's a lot of changes here to decipher, but this should make Gigi just feel a lot better overall, mainly because with Gigi again, she just felt really clunky to me. I don't know, I didn't really like how she worked before in the past, so hopefully this new Gigi will just feel better. Buzz is receiving 3 buffs, and this is absolute cinema because Buzz just never really receives any buffs or any nerfs for a very long time, well, since his release, right? So his first buff is with his attack spread. It's been reduced by 10%, so it makes it so it's way more consistent for mid to close range damage. This is nice. I think the spread was probably too much. I don't think people use Buzz's full attack spread in my opinion, so this is just going to allow you to just connect more punches. The next one is the super projectile speed has been increased by 3%. I believe they wanted to increase this a little bit more, but because it was just too fast, especially being able to like auto aim it at long range, they reduced this, so this is really nice. I think it meets a sweet spot. 3%, it isn't anything crazy, but it's definitely noticeable. And then the minimum stun duration has been increased from 0.5 seconds to 0.6 seconds. Oh, 0.1 seconds. Buzz is going to be broken. No, he's going to be a bit stronger. Not anything crazy, but I think he'll just feel nicer. And he's definitely been needing it because he's been stuck in a C tier for years. The next brawler receiving some changes is Kit. I think some buffs and nerfs to go along with this, making Kit more of a support brawler rather than an assassin, which was their initial intended design with Kit years ago, right? So the first change is that when you're attached to a brawler, so when you're throwing the yarn ball, it has a slight more spread, so it's just easier to hit shots. This is nice. I mean, it was sometimes, most of the time you could hit a shot, right, especially if you're skilled enough, but just being able to hit shots more frequently I think will appeal to people to try and jump onto a teammate rather than just constantly onto an enemy. The stun, so when you jump onto somebody, has been reduced from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, so again trying to take away some of the power from the assassin capabilities of Kit, which is really great. We want Kit to be a support brawler. The attached healing duration has been reduced though from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, which I'm a little bit surprised about. I'm not too sure why they really did that. The healing per second, well actually this is why they've done that. The healing per second has been increased from 10% to 15% of the maximum health, so when you're attached to someone, you're going to be healing them a lot more but for a shorter duration. And then the hypercharge healing per second has been increased from 20% maximum health to 25%. So with all of this, the only thing that you got to consider is that the stun is a little bit less duration, and you're just going to be able to hit people easier when you're attached to someone. You're going to be healing them more, and especially in hypercharge as well, so hopefully Kit will be more of a support brawler now. The next brawler receiving some buffs is Chester. Needs receiving 2, and I think this will make Chester a very meta brawler because I don't think there's really been that many tank counters at the top, so yeah, Chester will be really strong with this. Minor buff apparently. Damage per projectile is being increased from 1280 to 1340, so it doesn't sound like anything crazy, but it's basically a 100 buff. Well, it's actually 60, but it's near to the 100 damage buff, which is actually quite substantial. And then the health is being buffed from 7400 to 7600, so just the smallest tweaks to Chester really puts him in a good spot. I was putting him in a mid-level of a C tier, maybe towards the high level, because again, he was one of the only true counters to like a Lily or a Mortis or something, so I think he's definitely going to propel at the top of the meta now. Bonnie is receiving 2 buffs, so finally they absolutely killed Bonnie with the last nerf she received. Way too overkill, so now they're reducing the ultimate charge from her main attack, so that's going from 6 hits to 5 hits, but when you have the epic gear, it's going from 5 to 4, so yeah, it still feel pretty nice. It won't be anywhere, well, she won't be as strong as before, right, but I think she might be usable in like heists and a few other situations. And her hypercharge rate has been reduced from well, with the epic gear, it's going to take 10 shots now instead of 11, so I think overall, I think it might just make Bonnie a little bit more appealing. I don't know whether it's going to make her meta again, but it might make her like a C-tier brawler, maybe. Meg is receiving 2 small buffs. The first one being her toolbox gadget. So the radius of this gadget's been buffed by about 10%. So this is pretty nice. So more people can just reload faster. But it's a pretty strong gadget when you consider it. So let's just see where this lands. And then the force field stop out, so the shield one, you're getting from a 25% shield damage reduction, it's going to 30%, so just a small buff there. I think that the reload, the toolbox gadget might be pretty nice for Meg, but I don't think it's going to make her entirely meta. Pell is receiving another buff, this time to her main attack damage. So at minimum distance, at minimum heat, it's going from 540 per bullet to 560, so just a 7% increase, but that's still quite big considering the other buffs that she received in the past. So at maximum maximum heat is going to be nearly 1,000 damage, 980, which is pretty nice. Is this going to make Pearl entirely meta? Again, I'm not too sure, but it might make a more viable option in Knockout and Bounty again. The twins are receiving a hypercharge rate buff. It's going from needing 2.8 supers to get your hypercharge to 2.6 supers, so not anything crazy. I'd have actually liked a different buff to the twins because hypercharge isn't the greatest, but we'll see where it lands. He wasn't used in competitive at all in the previous weekend, so yeah, welcome change. Ruffs is receiving 2 buffs, one to a star power and one to a gadget. The first one being the field promotion star power. This has been underused for a while since they changed the way that health works. I think years ago when hypercharges were released, it didn't receive a buff, but now they've buffed it. So from healing 30 per second, you're going to be, well, increasing the health of your team. It's going to be increasing the health of your team 40 health per second, which doesn't sound anything crazy, but I'm a little bit apprehensive about this because in Knockout in particular, this could be very toxic, and I still think pros use the star power in Knockout. They do, because it's still quite useful. So let's see whether this becomes too toxic. And then the sandbags gadget take cover. Their health is being increased from 35% of Ruffs' max health to 40%. So he's going to be a little bit tankier, and those around him are going to be a bit tankier as well. I don't know whether Ruffs really needed these buffs, but yeah, I mean, maybe Ruff's mains are liking this. Stu is receiving 2 buffs. The first one to his health, going from 6,800 to 7,000, so just a small health buff. And then star power number 2, Gas Heal, is receiving a health buff from, well, the amount of health you get per super, from 554 to 560, so not anything crazy. Stu's just going to be a little bit more tankier. I don't think it's going to put him anywhere near the top of the meta bar. Bell is receiving 3 buffs here, which again, a little bit confused about because Bell has always been a consistent 8-tier brawler. But there are really minor changes here. So the first one is her super damage is being increased by 100 from 1,000 to 1,100. So again, not anything crazy. Her health is being increased from 5,600 to 5,800. Again, nothing crazy. And her hypercharge now requires 1 less main attack and 1 less super attack to charge. So more hypercharges, a little bit tankier, a little bit more damage. It might make her feel a tiny bit stronger. Clancy is receiving a little bit of a rework. They're taking a bit of the power away from the super and adding it to his base attack basically here. So level 1 base attack 1,200 to 1,400. Level 2 base attack going from 1,400 to 1,500. Level 2 now requires 6 shots instead of 7. They did this on purpose, Brawl Stars. And then the super bullets are being reduced from 16 shots to 12 shots. So they're removing 4 shots in total from his super, so just making it so you can't just delete everything, which I really like because that's what makes him too strong. They're also adding a proximity damage reduction to Clancy's super, so at maximum range he'll be dealing more damage with his super bullets, and at close range it'll only be 50% damage, if that makes sense. So on a high safe now you'll only be dealing 7,000 damage, which again is beautiful. I don't like it when you're close to a brawler and they just instantly delete you. That's not healthy for the game, and that's why Clancy's been stuck at the F tier for a very long time, because he's not been a healthy brawler at all. You shouldn't be able to team wipe with ease with his super, so this should make Clancy a little bit better. I don't actually think it'll be making him that much stronger, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And the last buff is with Rosa. I just want to give a huge shout out to a subscriber of mine, Violet F2. They donated I think $5 on one of my videos and recommended a few buffs to Rosa, and I put forward this one. It was really nice to the balance team. Super duration with Rosa has been increased from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. So I think this is a nice change with Rosa. Basically, like, her super just feels outdated, just like Daryl did in the past, right? So just allowing Rosa to just tank a little bit more and get more pressure, that might, I don't think it's going to make her anything crazy, but just imagine her maybe with some healers, with a Glober, with a Poco, etc. It might make her viable again. I like this change personally. I think it might be very underrated, probably the most underrated buff out of all of them. So now moving on to the brawlers that are receiving a nerf, and there's quite a few of them as well. Starting off with Mina, her windmill gadget has been reduced in duration from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Doesn't sound like anything crazy, but when you think about it, 1.5 seconds with a gadget, I think this is a really nice change. I think finally you can actually feel the nerf with this, crazy enough. And yeah, I think it might knock Nita down a tier at maximum, but she's still just so good overall. Mortis is receiving 2 nerfs, and yeah, he needed this. He's been an S tier brawler since his buffies have been released. His combo spinner gadget no longer goes through walls. This doesn't work in the dev build just yet, but it will in the live build, so this is really nice. Mortis should just not be able to go through walls. I mean, we're talking about the next gadget as well. I don't really like this gadget mechanically. Mortis going through walls doesn't make sense, but now at least his gadget will no longer charge his super. I still don't think this is the problem with Mortis. I still think Mortis is probably going to be an S tier brawler, or at minimum a high A tier brawler, because Creature of the Night is the gadget that a lot of pros have been using, because you can just dash in when there's a lot of aggro or some supers are being used. You can just use a gadget and dash out. Yeah, he can go through walls. It's a broken gadget. Next up, we have Spike. He's receiving 3 nerfs. The first one to his hypercharge. It requires slightly more than 3 supers to charge now. I like this nerf, but at the same time, I still think his hypercharge buffy is too strong. His pop-in pincushions gadget now scales with distance, so at close range, it will deal 60% of the total damage, which is 600 per spike at maximum. And then at max range, it will deal 1000 per spike. So this is, again, really nice. His burst damage is going to be much lower now. This gadget just really made no sense. I can't believe this was 6k damage upon release. Literally no assassin or tank could even get close to a spike. He would just deal maximum damage pretty much all of the time. And then the life plank gadget is receiving a cooldown nerf from 18 seconds to 20 seconds. So this is definitely going to bump Spike probably down 1 tier in the meta. He's still going to be very strong though, because he's one of the few brawlers in the game with a buffy. Next up, we have Frank, and he's receiving quite a few nerfs. The first one to his health is being reduced by 400, so from 14,000 to 13,600. His active noise cancelling gadget will no longer charge his gadget or whatever else. His sponge buffy, his shield is being reduced from 15% damage to 10%, which is nice. So yeah, we're removing health and a little bit of tanking, which is good. His power grab star power damage is being reduced from 25% to 15%. I don't think this was a big problem with him, but again, any nerf is kind of welcomed right now. And then his irresistible attraction gadget range is being reduced by 8%. So all of this is really nice. But after all these nerfs, I still don't think they've gone harsh enough with the nerfs with Frank. Maybe the meta around him might make him a little bit weaker, but I still think he's going to be a strong brawler that you need to be countering. Ems is receiving 2 nerfs, and the first one is a really nice change. So her supercharge from basic attack is being reduced now, so it takes 10 hits instead of 8 to fully charge a super. This was the one change that I wanted to see with Ems next, because she could just cycle through supers like crazy. This would mean that she's activating that immunity too often. It's just really hard to push into her as well, because she can just cycle through hypercharges. So a good change, but I still think she's going to be strong. Friend Zoner gadget will no longer charge super or hypercharge as well. So after everything, I still think she's going to be pretty strong. Colt is receiving a minor nerf, so his speed loader gadget no longer will charge his supercharge or hypercharge. I still think that maybe needs to nerf his speed loader gadget a little bit, but he wasn't really the strongest in the pro meta anyways. Pierce is receiving 2 nerfs, and I don't think this is going to be anywhere near enough to shake him from the S tier or one of the best brawlers inside of the game. So his bottomless max gadget cooldown has been increased by 2 seconds, and his supercharge is 10% slower to compensate for his last shot extra damage, which again, he's also getting a hypercharge on top of this. You got to remember, Pierce is easily still going to be the best brawler in the game in my opinion. These nerfs were basically nothing. He's receiving a small nerf, so they're nerfing the cooldown duration of her cold-blooded gadget from 14 seconds to 16 seconds. So this is a nerf that I recommended in my video, because with Ali you could just easily pop this gadget and just get infinite value. So a nice change, but she'll still be pretty strong. And finally, for all the balance changes, we have Rico. So Rico is receiving a super charge rate nerf. So instead of needing 12 bullets to gain his super, he'll now need 15 bullets to gain his super. So an extra 3 bullets sounds like a lot, but his unload speed was buffed significantly last update, and he's been a very toxic brawler. So this is a nice change. I still foresee Rico being easily at the top of the meta. Now moving on to the hypercharges, starting off with Glober. So Glober's hypercharge is a 360 super basically, so he's going to be able to fear people a lot easier, and people that are feared, so they're affected by his super, will also take 25% or 20%, I'm not too sure on the final figure yet. They'll take that percentage of extra damage from all sources whilst they're feared. So I think the fear is like 2 seconds, right? 2.5 seconds. So it's a short duration, and it takes 2.5 supers to gain this hypercharge. So it's quite fast charging. I don't think it's anything crazy, but Globert, I think, is pretty strong, guys. Next we have Pierce's hypercharge. So with Pierce's hypercharge super, he will throw out 2 waves of projectiles instead of the one usual one, which the second wave of projectile will deal 50% less damage than usual. So basically firing out like 1.5 supers when you think about it, and that projectile will be able to pierce through enemies. So this is a pretty good hypercharge, especially considering it takes about 2.5 supers to charge. So yeah, Pierce basically received no nerfs with the update, and he's receiving a hypercharge, so he's about to be easily the best brawler inside of the game. So now let's run through all of the buffies with the 6 new brawlers. It's going to take a little while, so strap in. First off, we're starting with Crow. So Crow is getting a gadget rework. It's going to insta poison now, the first gadget. So Crow will instantly deal all of the remaining damage to all Crow poisoned enemies and gain a shield for 100% of the value. So a little bit of extra steps in consideration to the previous one, because the previous gadget was just click a button, you get damage reduction, and it was pretty broken when you thought about it. And then the buffy for this gadget is that it refreshes all poison duration. So yeah, you're going to be poisoned, so you're going to basically deal a lot of damage quickly, then they're going to be repoisoned. This is a very strong buffy. Crow's gadget number 2 is also receiving a rework. So it's still slowing toxin, but you'll throw a kunai that damages and slows and poisons the first enemy it hits for a certain amount of time. And then the buffy on top of that, the kunai will also bounce to nearby targets, causing the same effect. So all these gadgets going to be better than the previous ones. I'm still yet to decide, because there's a lot of changes to it, a lot of extra steps, but it basically feels like it's just it takes a lot more skill to make the gadget work, which I really like, but it's got a buffy on top of it, so it probably will be stronger. So now Crow's star power buffy, starting off with extra toxic. So that star power has stayed the same, but the star power buffy, it makes it so Crow deals 5% more damage for each enemy that is poisoned. So they're going to be dealing less damage to you, and you're going to be dealing 5% extra damage. So I like this, but it's not anything crazy. 5% isn't anything too much, but we'll see. Maybe that does make Crow pretty strong. Crow's second star power buffy is still carrying Crow. That star power is not getting changed, but the star power buffy makes it so Crow's poison duration has been buffed by 1 extra second. So this again is actually pretty toxic. I think there was some like changes to Crow in beta days years before, and just even buffing it by like a second or anything just make Crow a lot more toxic and a lot more frustrating. You're stopping the enemy from regenerating health for an extra second. I think that's quite huge. And if you pair that with the first gadget and you're refreshing the poison duration with an extra second on top of that with this star power buffy, it could make for a really toxic pairing. And then finally for Crow, his hypercharge buffy is basically the same, I think, as the mutation, or this was a part of an event definitely in the past. So with Crow's hypercharge main attack, it will pierce and return, dealing after reaching maximum range, but it would deal 20% less damage upon returning. So yeah, I think after testing this, I realized it was way too strong. It needed something nerfing about it, but it's still toxic, right? You're still buffing the amount of damage you deal by basically double still, so that's going to be increasing your supercharge rate. I think after all of these buffs, I think Crow surely still has to be, well, I think he'll be an S tier brawler easily. The hypercharge seems very strong, the carrying Crow buffy seems pretty toxic, and the first gadget feels pretty toxic as well. Yeah, I think Crow will be pretty strong, borderline broken. So now we're going to be moving on to the buffies for Bibi, and she's been needing some love for a long time, and Bibi mains, I think you're going to be eating with all of these buffies. She's surely got to be at the top of the meta with all of these. So the first one is with her vitamin booster gadget. So it just normally heals you, right? But with the buffy on top of that, it will instantly charge your home run. So your home run is the attack you use to knock people back, and if you hit somebody with your next attack, you will restore 60% of the damage dealt as health. So that just sounds really toxic, right? You've already got the healing from the normal gadget, and then the buffy, if you hit somebody, even more health. So it's just going to make Bibi a lot tankier and a lot more aggressive. The second gadget, Extra Sticky, has been reworked, which was like the worst gadget inside of a game, so I'm glad they've done this. So Bibi will now throw a bubble gum that slows all enemies in it by 20%. So at first it might feel a little bit weird being able to just throw this out as a Bibi, right? But the Buffy on top of this, the slowing effect increases the longer the gum stays on the ground. So if you get caught within this new Buffy gadget, it's going to be very toxic. It's going to make it a lot easier for Bibi just to hit you, to stay within range, and it might be even easier for you to just get kills on top of enemies, right? If you can just throw this sticky, it's going to be an area denial. It's going to add more versatility to Bibi's kit, which is nice. So now let's move on to Bibi's star power Buffies, starting off with Home Run. So Home Run hasn't been changed, but the Buffy for this star power, you would deal 20% extra damage with your Home Run attack. So the Buffy isn't anything crazy, right? But I think most people will just stay to this star power because it's just so strong fundamentally, just being able to just move faster when your home run is charged. I think it would be a nice Buffy, but not anything broken. So now moving on to a second star power, which is a batting stance Buffy. So again, the star power hasn't changed, but the star power Buffy, Bibi will gain a shield for 5 whole seconds. By the way, 5 seconds. We know what 5 seconds is like in terms of slows, and with a 5-second shield, you gain this by just hitting somebody with your super. So imagine if you're chaining super, it will just be reset back to the 5 seconds. But let's just say if you have a 5-second shield and then, you know, by the duration ending, I don't know, you've got 1 second left and then you hit another super onto somebody, because you can chain quite fast with Bibi, you then get another 5-second shield. So it's got to be very toxic to cycle through this. I think this one will be a really underrated Buffy. I'm excited for this. Well, I don't know whether I'm excited, but it's going to be very strong. And then moving on to Bibi's hypercharge Buffy, and it's basically Buzz Lightyear. Do you remember Buzz Lightyear's, was it Saber form, I think it was? He just swings so fast. It was just a better version of Bibi. Yeah, this is what this hypercharge is like. It's very fun, but incredibly strong and incredibly toxic. I probably see this hypercharge Buffy being the reason as to why Bibi probably might be like an A tier or an S tier brawler on the meta. Honestly, this hypercharge Buffy is broken, guys. I think with all of these buffs combined, and there just not being many other Buffy brawlers inside of the meta, I think we might be seeing a Bibi meta, guys. These are some really good Buffies. So now let's move over to Bull's Buffies. So he's receiving a rework to his T-Bone Injector gadget. So Bull will throw out a projectile, dealing 1,600 damage, and he will heal 800 if he hits it. And the Buffy will mark the target for 5 whole seconds, and Bull will get a 50% lifesteal against that target. So that's a lot to really take into consideration here, but basically you're just going to be throwing out projectile, it will mark them, and you'll just be gaining even more heal through the life steal. So this could be really underrated gadget, because T-Bone Ejector in the past just gave you like a flat rate heal, which wasn't too strong, but you could potentially get a lot of healing out of those 5 seconds. The second gadget has received a rework as well. So Stomper, before you'll click the gadget and then go in with your super and it will stun them, but now Bull just stomps. As soon as you click your gadget, he'll just stomp on the ground and slow enemies. But the whole catch here, right? So if enemies are already slowed, they'll be stunned. So basically you want to be stomping people after you super them, because your super built it, well, what's built in, right? If you land on somebody with your normal super, you'll slow them. So then you activate gadget after this, after they're slowed, you would stun them. And then with the Buffy, if you stun an enemy, you'll gain a 30% movement speed buff for 3 seconds. So yeah, you just have to get used to clicking the gadget after you super in instead of clicking it before you go in, which will be, yeah, it's going to be nice, but I don't think this Buffy is anything broken. So now moving on to the star power Buffy, starting off with Berserker. This hasn't been changed, but the Buffy, so whenever you defeat an enemy whilst this effect is in place, you will instantly charge your Bull super again, which is pretty nice. I think this will make for some really cool clips. I don't think this will be anything too broken, I imagine, because you're having to sacrifice the extra health you'd normally get with Bull with this Berserker, but it could make some really cool plays. I'm just imagining Pika with this could be very fun. Star power number 2, Tough Guy, hasn't received a rework, but the Buffy, it sounds toxic on paper, but yeah, let's just go through it. So when defeating a brawler whilst this effect is active, you'll be immune for 0.5 seconds. So this sounds toxic, and yes, I really hate immunity, invulnerability, whatever you guys want to call it. I hate it in the game. Just think of M's with hype, very toxic, but yeah, it's a little bit like you have to defeat a brawler, right? And normally when you defeat a brawler, you know, 1 versus 1 situation, it's only 0.5 seconds. So yeah, I think hold on against it for now, but I still think it might be very powerful. I just don't like invulnerability, but I'm willing to give it a chance for now. So now moving on to Ball's hypercharge Buffy. This one seems really powerful. So I think they explained it a little bit weird in the Buffy, but basically I think that Ball can at maximum range deal a lot more damage, but it's not as much damage as he would at close, if that makes sense. So kind of like taking off the damage proximity, basically nerfing the damage a little bit, but the long range attacks also pierce through enemies. So this would be like a longer Sandy shot, basically. This will just allow him to be a bit better at crowd control, allow him to maybe cycle through his super a lot more effectively. This could be a very strong hypercharge Buffy that people will definitely underestimate. I'll probably see Bull returning to the S tier with all of these Buffies combined, you know, invulnerability. All of it isn't too toxic, but I think this hypercharge Buffy would definitely put him over the edge and make him very meta. So now let's run through Nita's Buffy, starting off with the gadget Buffy. So the gadget Buffy, the first one hasn't been changed, but the gadget Buffy, her bear will gain a 50% damage from the first attack, from the next attack, which isn't anything crazy. It's like an extra, I don't know, 600, 400 damage. It's not anything really crazy. Just maybe that's probably the only extra damage it's gonna get. Yeah, it's not gonna be good, is it? Nita's second gadget Buffy sounds a lot more toxic in my opinion. So with the gadget Buffy, Nita and Bruce will become invulnerable for 0.5 seconds. So again, I don't know why they've added invulnerability again. I know it's only a short window, 0.5 seconds, but it's literally when you activate the gadget. So this is a lot more annoying rather than like an... Well, M's is still the same, but at least with Ball, you know, you had to defeat somebody whilst Tough Guy was active. This one is just you click gadget and you're invulnerable. So you could actually tank a lot. Again, 0.5 seconds. I'm willing to at least give it a fair shot, but this one sounds a little bit toxic. Nita's star power Buffy number 1, bear with me, has an ability which can overheal Nita and her bear for up to 2,000 health. So the shield does run out very quickly, but I can imagine this just eating up a lot more ammo and being a lot more frustrating to face off against. Again, it's not anything completely broken, but it's definitely a really nice addition. Nita's star power Buffy number 2, Hyper Bear, sounds pretty strong. So when you summon Bruce, it will give Nita an increased reload speed of 25% for 3 seconds. So this just sounds really cool, right? You've already got the Hyper Bear just eating away at the safe, and then you get extra reload speed as well. I think combined, this could be really strong. So now moving on to Nita's hypercharge Buffy. So with Nita's hypercharge Buffy, she's got a lot of buffs with this. So Nita's attack will be increased in speed, width, and range during her hypercharge. That's 3 buffs in one. I think that's a little bit overkill, because if you pair this hypercharge Buffy with that star power number 2 Buffy, so you get increased reload speed for 3 seconds, and you get increased just projectile speed, width, and range on top of that. That's 4 buffs during that hypercharge potentially there. And then on top of that, if you're running the invulnerability gadget, this just sounds pretty annoying to face off against. I don't really see a world where Nita is anything below the A tier in the next meta. Now moving on to Leon's Buffy, starting off with gadget number 1, clone projector. This has been reworked slightly, so now Leon's clone will deal minor damage to enemies, which is nice. Before, people could just ignore it and all it was like a meat shield. And then the Buffy, Leon can reactivate the gadget and whilst the clone is active, and swap positions with the clone. So just kind of like Lola's gadget. But this could be really, like, not really strong, but definitely way better than the previous version, and might actually make you have to decide which gadget to choose with Leon. This is a nice buff. Gadget Buffy number 2 is still Lollipop Drop, but it seems like the Lollipop Drop it's bigger in radius. Maybe my eyes deceive me. They didn't actually say it in the description. But the gadget Buffy allows Leon and his allies to gain a 15% movement speed buff inside of the area. This gadget Buffy looks really powerful, and if you remember when this gadget first came out, it was pretty broken. I probably envision the same here. It looks really powerful. So now moving on to Leon's star power Buffy, starting off with smoke trails. So this gives you the additional speed right when you're invisible. So now the first attack after becoming visible will deal 15% extra damage. So this is a nice combination, right? Normally with smoke trails, you can actually just cover more distance. But then you've got to consider with this, right, you're losing the mythic gear on top of this. So yeah, I don't know whether this will be viable anymore, mainly because you need that mythic gear in combination with smoke trails to make anything happen. So star power number 2 Buffy is Invisi-Heal. It's still not changed, but the Buffy adds an extra 1 second duration, which is pretty nice, and I think this will be the go-to one. Again, I used to use smoke trails on those longer range maps, but I don't think it's very useful anymore because that window of opportunity has just been diminished entirely. So now Invisi-Heal will definitely be the better one, and an extra second will be really nice. So now moving on to Leon's hypercharge Buffy, and this one again is very strong. All the hypercharge Buffies sound pretty broken with this update. So this one, Leon's main attack will at least deal 75% damage regardless of distance. So you're essentially, you could be shooting at maximum distance, and it's like you're shooting with Leon basically point blank. Well, not point blank, really close, right? So you're just going to be dealing an insane amount of damage, considering the hypercharge duration is buffed on top of this as well. I can envision Leon just leapfrogging up the meta. I mean, I don't think all of his other Buffies are really strong at all, but the hypercharge Buffy makes him, at least he'll be a good counter pick option again in bounty, at least, and he'll be pretty strong in like hot zone for control. I think this will put him pretty high up the meta. So moving on to the final brawler that's received a Buffy, it's Bo, and Bobby is literally going to be quaking in his boots looking at a lot of these Buffies, guys. So the first one is with his Super Totem gadget. Basically, the radius has been increased substantially, and I think the health's been buffed on top of this as well, so it lasts for like a whole 20 seconds. This looks insane. I don't really like this because as well, you can throw this up the map. Imagine in like Ring of Fire, or when your teammate he's in a really advantageous position. You could just throw this Super Totem close to him. And yeah, imagine a really toxic super combined with this. I don't really like this one in terms of fairness. It looks pretty broken. Bo's second gadget has received a slight rework. So now when Bo fires, well, when he clicks his gadget, he will fire tripwires at his mines, detonating them. So basically, if you're caught in between Bo and the mines, you'll be receiving damage. And then the Buffy on top of this, the mines that are detonated by this gadget will have a bigger blast radius. This could be very toxic, especially considering the gadget cooldown is very short. This could be giving Bo a bit too much damage. So now let's move on to Bo's Buffies star powers, starting off with star power number 1. So I don't think I could get gameplay in time for this, but basically Bo is no longer revealed in bushes when attacking. This is very toxic. I tried this out with people some time ago, and it seems very toxic because you literally cannot see where the Bo is attacking from. It's not going to be anything like, I don't know, it would just be very hard to get used to begin with, and it's just something we've not really seen before. It's very map and mode specific, right? You've got like double swoosh and a few other maps where it could be very strong on. I don't know, I'm a little bit scared of this. I don't really like the mechanic behind it. I mean, it's pretty cool because it's a star power that's not been used for a while. It's not entirely useful on its own, but the star power Buffy no longer being revealed when attacking sounds very powerful. Snare a Bear Buffy, so with this star power, it still stays the same, but it significantly increases the trap placement speed when you have a Buffy with a star power. So you're just able to throw out mines a lot quicker. This could just can allow for better control. It doesn't sound like anything crazy, but you got to remember, you still want to use the star power for the stun on top of it. So yeah, I think now you'll be able to pick star powers depending on the map. So moving on to the final bit of the video, the hypercharge Buffy with Bo makes it so Bo will add an additional 4th arrow with his main attack, and then each arrow has an increased area damage radius. I think every hypercharge Buffy just sounds a little bit too ridiculous in my opinion. Yeah, it should buff the main attack, but this just sounds incredibly toxic. Adding a 4th arrow, that also increases his supercharge rate, the amount of damage output. It increases a lot, 7 second as well. I think all of these hypercharge Buffies look probably the strongest things about most of these Brawlers kits, to be honest. So in terms of all of the new Brawlers, I'll quickly go from with the Buffies. I think Crow will be pretty strong and still be at like an S tier Brawler inside of the meta. I think Bibi will 1,000,000% be like A tier minimum, especially with that hypercharge Buffy. Bull again, easily A tier. Nita again, easily A tier, maybe even S tier. Leon, I think, will be the weakest out of these Buffy Brawlers, but he'll still be pretty toxic with all of his new changes. And then Bo just sounds ridiculous, especially with a few of these things. I mean, it won't make him like a broken brawler in most situations, but in hot zone a few other, like at the lower level, probably will make him very broken. But that's gonna be it for today's video. So many changes. I've lost my voice by the end of this, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for future sneak peeks, and also I'll be back on the ladder grind of this update, so subscribe for that. See you guys later. Bye bye.